So, just taking a moment as everyone arrives into this very special moment in time and space as we collect from all around the globe together. Some of us under the beautiful sun, others under the moon. It's beautiful full moon I've noticed is quite auspicious for the timing of our gathering today. So we're also live streaming now on Facebook, just giving everyone a moment to arrive. So thank you for everyone for making that commitment to be here present with us. And a big shout out to those in the future that are watching the replay and just really inviting you into this here and now as well. So beautiful. So if you're watching on Facebook Live, feel free to engage in the comment thread below, but we will actually only be able to see the comments in the Zoom webinar room. So if you're in the Zoom webinar, then just a few little technical things before we get into the juice of today's webinar. And you'll see that there's a chat box that you can access from your Zoom platform. And I see some of you have already found that, and we're getting some amazing greetings. And Richard, big love. So Richard is tuning in from Devon. I've got some people tuning in from Romania, Canada, coming from all around. So Sweden. So much love to you all. Thank you so much for being here. So that's your chat box on the side. So feel free to pop in there where you're tuning in from. And we've got Dan Regan in there as well. Much love. And you will also see that you can choose how you wish to see the webinar, I believe, whether you're seeing a group of people, the three of us, or each of us singly. Now, from this point, we're about to take a little deep dive into exploring the dynamics of our collective right now through the work of an amazing woman known as Rosie Aronson. That doesn't need much of an introduction for many of us in the Gene Keys community, but there's a lot of people tuning in from all around the planet that may not be aware of what the Gene Keys are or what the Wisdom Keepers are, etc. That just got drawn to this. So I want to welcome you in. And what we're going to be looking at today is I'm about to introduce you to Rosie Aronson. And from there, we're going to take a little exploration around, these dynamics and, tapping into a reading that Rosie has prepared using the Wisdom Keeper Oracle deck. That's going to be really a reflection of, the strong kind of contemplative points that can help us really come into integrity as we go forwards through these amazing, transformative, wild, crazy energies. So we're going to have a little bit of sharing from the three of us, and then we'll go from there into it's actually a recording that was prepared by Rosie, which is quite special, which she will speak into in a moment. And then the recording will go for about 45 minutes and is actually quite mind-blowing when you get to see what's held inside it. And then on the other side of that, we'll then welcome you back in, and we'll be sharing some little bits and pieces about where we go from here, and what the offerings are from the Wisdom Keepers as a community, and really connecting in. So it's going to be an exciting time together. It's really nice to see everyone joining. So Rosie and Pam, just letting you know, so far we have 358 participants from all around the world live with us in this webinar, and all those who are joining us on Facebook Live. So just want to take a moment to welcome you all into this space. And so maybe if we just take a collective breath, just to bring us all right here into this moment. So I invite you just to breathe in nice and deep. And then just letting yourself exhale into the moment. Just letting yourself relax. And just bringing awareness into the fact that we are using incredible technology we are blessed with right now. With this internet, that the bandwidth is actually being, holding up so much for the community to connect around the globe right now. And so if you find any glitches or blips along the way in the transmission, in the streaming, then the invitation is just to sit with any agitation that might stir up, and allowing that to just bring you more present into this moment, and cultivating as much patience as we can have to just enjoy the transmission. And let's put it out there for the internet gods to support this process. So enough about that. I would love to bring in one of the amazing stars of the show. As I say, she doesn't need much for many, but Rosie Aronson is one of the most incredible women that I've come across, incredible humans, incredible beings in this universe that I've had the pleasure to call a friend, that I've been able to call a mentor, and to be able to really look up to in what it means to walk with integrity in being a wisdom keeper in this world. So Rosie has a very beautiful, colorful background in all the different qualifications, which you can see on her website. You'll hear more about that as we go forwards. But the part I really wanted to highlight is that Rosie Aronson is one of the most genuine, authentic leaders in the field that I've come across. She is an amazing, heart-centered, beautiful being that has so much compassion, yet this kind of strength and courage and integrity that is just amazing. So with that being said, I would love to bring on the creator of the Wisdom Keeper deck, the writer of many powerful books for wisdom keepers of our time, Rosie Aronson.
I hope everyone in the world gets to experience an introduction like that. Oh my God, I have to say, I was not expecting to be so moved just watching the people come onto the chat and say hello, people that I love so much. I feel so much love. My heart is almost like pumping out of my chest right now. And I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity to all be together. So it's worth getting over my nervousness and just being here with all of you. And in a way, I can't even believe that this is actually happening. As Mark said, we're going to be sharing this recording that I created of a collective reading using the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. You may not know that I actually prepared this reading 2 years ago. And then, you know, as John Lennon would say, life happened while I was busy making other plans. And I think that line from that song has more relevance now for all of us than it ever has before. But I am a big believer in synchronicity, and even experienced some impatience with myself over these past years, like wondering why I couldn't just get my act together and share this with at least somebody. I can now see that the timing for this reading couldn't be any better. So for those of you who already know the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, you know that there are 65 cards. So the first 64 feature the 64 Phases of Awakening, which was an art project or more like a meditation practice that I did back in 2015 already. But the 65th card is a mirror card, because in the end, we are all wisdom keepers in training. And I really believe that each of us carry the potential to become wisdom keepers that we have been looking for. And today I would even add that, you know, this is the time that all of us, everybody here who loves and yearns for wisdom, have been preparing for. So I don't know about you, but I would be the relatively sane person that I am today without all of the beautiful, loving, patient, compassionate wisdom keepers in my own life. My buddies, my friends, my parents, my sister, such amazing role models. My husband, Kim, who miraculously is still willing to be married to me after all I put him through in preparing for this webinar and everything else that I do. My daughter, who continues to encourage me to just get over myself and just share my love and passions with the world authentically. She's size and she's just 16 and blows me away. My very sweet and caring co-housing community in Santa Fe, New Mexico. My friends in Uganda from Universal Love Alliance. Richard Budd, who's here and who has allowed the Gene Keys transmission, which is a huge part of the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, to just pull through him and out of the world with such a power and mastery and generosity and inspiration. And of course, all of the people that I met through the Gene Keys community and the human design community, which led me to the Gene Keys in the first place, and the expressive arts therapy communities. And basically everybody here who's like devoting their lives to embodying and evolving and co-creating a multifaceted expression of compassion. So that brings me to the two particular wisdom keepers in my life and Gene Keys ambassadors who are sitting by my side today like crystalline pillars of support. I want to acknowledge Pam DeLeo and Mark Bentley with all of my heart, because without them, and I mean this, I can promise you this webinar would not be happening. It would not be happening. So you've already got a chance to experience Mark a little bit, but I'd like to give him a more official introduction and give him a chance to share some of his own magnificence with you. So Mark, I mean, I could never do as wonderful a job as you, but I just want to say that you bring new meaning to the word noble man. And even though you live in Australia, I'm probably going to cry throughout this whole thing, you're all warned. But even though you live in Australia and I live in New Mexico, I just feel so safe with you. I feel so safe in your energetic holding. I don't even know how else to put it. But you're not only gifted technical realms, you're one of the brightest bulbs I've ever met in the intelligence department. And you're not just smart and good looking, as my grandma Nettie used to say, but you're also full of wisdom, clarity, sensitivity, and compassion. And he loves all of us so much that he got up at like 3 in the morning to make this happen. So Mark, thank you so much for doing this and being by my side and for being such an amazing teacher, and also for having been a circus performer. But that's for another time. I just thought I'd pique everybody's interest there. So Mark, would you like to share some words with us? Because I'd love for everyone to get to know you some more.
Now you're going to make me cry, Rosie. I think we're just going to have a big old love fest here this morning. So thank you, Rosie. And thank you, Pam. These being such beautiful anchors in my life as well. So thank you, Rosie, for that introduction, and thank you for bringing us into speed with where we are with this Wisdom Keeper transmission. And so what I'd like to do is just bring a little storytelling in, something I've found over the years as I've had such good mentorship from the likes of Rosie and Pam and Richard Rudd. So a big shout out who's here with us today, and so many others that are in this, and so many of my friends and people along the way. Is I've come to realize that it doesn't really matter about what's right or wrong or what's true as such on a mental level. But I've started to really drop more and more into the storyline of the evolution of consciousness is playing out, really embracing the fairy tale of life. And with that, I wanted to just put into this space a little sharing, a little storytelling around the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. And because it seems very appropriate for our time. And I know a lot of people have gone through the analogy of the caterpillar. You know, we know about the caterpillar. It finds its way. It's, something triggers inside the caterpillar that says it's time. So it finds a place where it can set itself up with this cocoon, where it creates this safe space for it to be able to go into and build its protection around itself. And as that caterpillar goes in, I was thinking to myself one day, I was out there just pondering, what would that be like as a caterpillar to almost go to your certain death, the death of the caterpillar, and as it begins to create this darkness around itself, going back into the womb, into this darkness, this shadow. And as it begins to create the cocoon, the caterpillar then biologically, and this is what I love about the analogy of the butterfly, is scientifically, it is such a beautiful metaphor for what we're going through, is that this caterpillar then in this shadow, in this darkness, begins to break down its old structures. The framework that holds the caterpillar together, its cellular structure, begins to break down and dissolve into this goo, into this glop. It's sticky and it's something that from the caterpillar's perspective would possibly be terrifying. It'd be scary because there's no control, there's no promises, there's no knowing, on a mental level for the caterpillar about what's to come. It just needs to trust in faith to let the old break away and do what it needs to do. But then what begins to happen is as that caterpillar breaks down its framework, it's actually releasing old stagnant resources, energy that was once bonded in creating this old structure. as it breaks down, it begins to release this energy. It begins to make it accessible again into this goo. And then within that goo is these things called imaginal cells. Now, these imaginal cells, again and again, it astounds me that this is actually the biological scientific name that they have for these cells is imaginal cells. So they are cells inside a caterpillar that lay dormant, just awaiting, holding the imagination of a future appearance, a future evolution of the caterpillar. And as those imaginal cells, once the goo happens, the imaginal cells begin to turn on, they switch on, they come alive. And at first, there's only a few that are swimming around in this goo of the caterpillar. You know, they're alone in their separate little worlds, these imaginal cells. But they trust in their mission. They trust in their light that they are bringing, you know, without anything other than their own faith in their purpose, what they're here for. And these imaginal cells, what happens is that caterpillar goo, the imaginal cells are so different in the way that they manifest the caterpillar's gift, that the old cells of the caterpillar actually get nervous. They get scared. The immune system thinks that there's something attacking the caterpillar. And so it tries to defend itself. It tries to destroy these imaginal cells, to shut down the imagination, to shut down the light, because it's different. It's too weird. It's too strange. And then eventually those imaginal cells, they just keep on spreading their light. More imaginal cells begin to be born from those. And as the light of the imaginal cells begin to shine, they begin to come together and clump together and create this new energy of the new imagination, get stronger and stronger, until eventually the light of these imaginal cells, the imagination itself of the butterfly, begin to be so strong that the caterpillar surrenders, that it surrenders its old resources and says, here you go. And those imaginal cells come together and begin to take those resources and put them together and restructure to recreate a new world for this caterpillar in its higher gift, in its higher frequency of what it came here to be. And so then this caterpillar, you know, turns into the butterfly. The imaginal cells begin to create these entirely new structures, these beautiful wings of incredible colors. And they're so unique. Every butterfly is so incredibly unique. The mathematics of the universe are inside these butterfly wings. You know, it's such an incredible magic. And then, but it doesn't stop there. You know, then we have the butterfly wings, and there's so many of us out there. We have so many imaginal cells. In fact, we have 422 imaginal cells live with us right here in this webinar. And there are a lot more imaginal cells out there through the social media world watching us on Facebook Live. And then so many more imaginal cells that are switching on and waking up, that are connecting into this replay, not just in the next 48 hours, but in the years to come as they stumble across this. And just knowing that as these come together, that all of us are beginning to really embrace our own wings. And part of this process is that you cannot cut a cocoon open. You cannot release a butterfly before it's ready. You know, it's like no matter how idealistic and optimistic we want to be, how much we want to be over compassionate, and when we see someone who's going through their caterpillar process to butterfly, we would love to just help them out, you know, to open that cocoon and let them free. But if you look in nature, what happens if you cut a cocoon open too early, then the butterfly wings have not had a chance to fully awaken. And the butterfly will fall to the ground and will be very weak and will have a very hard time in stepping forth. Whereas when that butterfly is allowed its natural process, much like the birthing of a child going through the contractions through the womb to birth, when that butterfly is given the opportunity to use its own power, to use its own wings, to struggle against the cocoon, knowing there's just one impulse, and that impulse is to awaken. That impulse is to come open and to release its light into the world. When that butterfly trusts deeply in that, has the opportunity to push and pressure and go through its own contractions of birth, then it gets all the juices flowing through the wings. It helps its wings get strong, its body gets strong, so that when it does finally crack open and release itself, it's fully empowered to fly from the very first moment it steps out into the world. And it begins to stretch those wings, and the colors and the mathematics of the universal evolution just begins to flow out and shine into the world, bringing that hope. And as many of you have probably realized at times when you've been out there in the garden, and, you know, I don't know about you, but I've had this moment where life is so busy and so hectic, and it gets so mental sometimes, or scary. And then suddenly, in the middle of all this noise, a butterfly just simply flutters down and enters into your experience for a moment. It stops on a branch, maybe right next to you, on a flower or somewhere, or if you're lucky, on your finger. And you get this moment where everything stands still, and you get to just sit and be reminded of the absolute beauty of this world with the lightest touch. So I just wanted to share that it doesn't matter how grand your part is in this amazing show that we're in at the moment, whether you're on stage speaking to hundreds of people, or whether you're holding a quiet, beautiful space in your garden in the backyard, holding that presence of the butterfly, that each and every one of us is so valuable. So thank you for joining me on that storytelling, and I'd love to pass you back to Rosie.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. I feel like a child, and I just put to sleep with my oh, that was profound, Mark. Thank you so much. So I know we have a schedule here, so I'm going to move on with a very deep, full, happy heart, and introduce Pam to all of you. You know, those people in your life that have like this perfect combination of wisdom, compassion, and then this like get real honest, like this piercing truth-telling gift? That's Pam. That is totally Pam. And she has been supporting me in so many ways over these past few years, from proof editing manuscripts to coaching me out of chaos into order in relation to my gazillion projects and serious difficulty prioritizing, to helping me achieve better work-life balance, and to stop and notice those butterflies, as Mark was just sharing with us, and then to calling me out when I'm wriggling out of the spotlight, or getting lost in my usual shame and self-critical spirals. So I just cannot thank you enough, Pam, for all that you've done for me. You're just one of those people who can have the big picture and then track all the little details while keeping your heart open. I don't know how you do it. But you also really care about a lot of the same things that I care about, like in addition to the beautiful gene keys, transmission, human design, like what it really means to have integrity and to walk these really fine lines in our relationships and in spiritual settings. So I feel like I have a real ally in you. And you also happen to be a really creative and talented human being, a lifelong body worker with a professional past in the film and finance industries. Just thought I'd put that in there because it's a very versatile woman we're looking at. And you know, Pam just really cares about this world of ours, and she actually cares so much about each of you. So much, she's been the driving force really behind our gathering together for the moment. You know, she just keeps encouraging me over and over again to just show up, even when I feel nervous or would rather hide out in a cave eating chocolate somewhere, which is most of the time. So it's such an amazing honor for me to share Pam with all of you. And so Pam, do you want to share something from your heart with everybody here?
Yes, lots of good tears going around today. Thank you, Rosie. That was quite something. And Mark, that was just, oh my gosh, talk about exquisite storytelling. Yeah. And hello to everyone. I'm going to talk about Rosie just a little bit more because it's the reason I'm here. And when we first met quite a few years ago, it was in a group, a Gene Keys group. And I just immediately recognized this amazing, amazing woman who has the most incredible, huge, generous, compassionate, and insightful heart and mind. And she has such a capacity to create safety and really deeply, totally listen and include everyone. And she just deeply touched and always touches my heart. And so a few years later, she asked me to work with her on her books and her courses. And it was an immediate yes. And it's been just my great honor and delight to do that for these last few years. And we were recently in a work meeting, and I was, I don't do it too much when we're in a work meeting, but sometimes I was rambling on about some idealism subject and optimism about actually what this time is really all about. And she said, would you be willing to do that and talk about that in the webinar? And I just took a big fat gulp and went, I can't say no to Rosie as much as I support her in stepping up. So this little hermit said, okay, I will. And it's one thing to just say it in spontaneity. It's another thing to kind of try to come up with something. So I'm going to keep it short and simple and just share a bit. In recent times, I've really noticed in my own life as an elder particularly, but I'm sure it's true for everyone, that so many people are challenged by the darkness of our times. And I don't mean just this current crisis. I mean, for some time, we have just a lot of challenge in our world and suffering, and some more scary maybe than ever things around environment and whether we're going to survive, and especially some of our wonderful younger people. And so I found myself really wanting to provide some comfort and hope. And I've been an activist all my life in different kinds of ways, some more quiet than others. And early on, mostly around political and economic things. And then at some point, this also included my commitment and devotion in my spiritual life. And at some point back, really decades now, I began to hear stories around this time. And I heard them over the years from different of our most wise traditions, the Hopis and the Mayans and the East Indians and the Tibetan Buddhists. And I kept hearing, slightly different but similar predictions about this time and how dark it would really be, and assurance that it would be okay, because it needed to be that for the light to really come through and come back. And so I found myself speaking that in a way that I hadn't, and sharing that with people, and realizing that many people hadn't heard those stories, and they've been such a solace for me. So this webinar and this time to me is about shared hearts and sharing hearts, and about humanity really learning and remembering that we're both paradoxically incredibly unique individuals, and we're also totally interdependent and not separate. And my generation worked hard in some ways to create change, and it could appear as if it's completely slipped away, at least in this country in current times, but it hasn't. It's all been building blocks. And the gene keys I just want to honor in this moment is really what brought me back. My idealism hadn't died, but it was definitely pretty cautious. And in this work, this extraordinary work, it's allowed me to bring back that and my commitment, both for our species and planet, in whatever way that is. As Mark said, it can be quiet and simple at home, it can be out on the streets, and it's all going to have powerful effect. So I think that we actually all remember, there's a remembering in us about how to live in that way. I know it's always been in me. It's been in my bones since I was little, and probably from other times. I certainly can't achieve it all the time. I'm really great at making trouble and conflict, and there's also a remembering of how we work and live and love together. And so Rosie's work speaks to this in just such an extraordinary, powerful, and beautiful way. And this webinar, I think you're really going to enjoy. And it's so amazing that it was created a couple of years ago, kind of thought of in her plans to share about now. And then we moved into this pretty unprecedented time. And her amazing filmmaker husband, Kim Aronson, created it with her, and it's just beautiful quality and just beautifully done. So it's my great delight and honor to turn it back to you, my beloved friend and sister and mentor and boss.
Oh my God. Oh, thank you, Pam. Sure, now everybody understands why Mark and Pam are here with me today. I think I should make a 66th and 67th card in my deck with your faces on them. So, I know it's all right. So maybe just in order to keep us on track with time, I'll just introduce the video real quick. And so this is the recording that my wonderful, beautiful husband helped me to create. And really, this isn't about me. This is the wisdom keeper speaking to all of us, including speaking to me. And it's about 45 minutes, I think. So get comfortable, relax. Like Mark said, if it's a little choppy at first, hopefully it'll smooth out. I don't know if Mark wants to say anything more about that, but otherwise we can just go and see how it goes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, Pam. Such an angel. Thank you. And fantastic. So yes, we'll launch into the video streaming now of this recording. And I think, like we've heard the backstory, the fact that it was done a while ago is what just adds so much magic to this time release. Everything in perfect timing. So now, once we begin streaming, we're hoping that putting the faith in the gods to hold the transmission nice and strong. If you do find it's a little bit choppy, it may be your own internet connection, as there are connection issues around the world at the moment, as there's a lot of pressure with a lot of people connecting in through the bandwidth. So we just ask people to, again, sit with any agitation that might build and to trust that whatever you get from the next 45 minutes will be beautiful, and that there will be a replay with a high quality video version in it that you will be able to access within 48 hours afterwards. So if for some reason anything happens during the next 45 minutes, just knowing that it is absolutely okay and you're not missing out. You will be part of the collective and be part of that process. We won't be able to offer much tech support in the back end. I know that Kim, thank you, Kim, big shout out for all the work that you've done and for holding the space for this incredible woman here. And Kim is in the chat, so he may pop a few words here and there as he goes, and we'll be watching as well. So with that all said and done, let's begin the show. Now, by the way, you might have the video panel while the video is streaming. You might be able to close that or have it open. Just ignore us if we're sitting in the corner. Fantastic. So if there's nothing else, I will begin the show. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce the Wisdom Keeper layout, the spread for our times. Please enjoy.
Hello, welcome to this webinar, our Collective Transformation Gathering. I'm Rosie Aronson, the artist and author of the Wisdom Keeper's Oracle Deck and Inner Guidebook. I've also been a spiritual and expressive arts counselor and teacher for many years, as well as an avid permission giver, pressure dissolver, and embracer of the unknown. My deepest intention today is to call in the Wisdom Keepers for guidance on behalf of all of us. If you've been drawn to this gathering, you may be feeling like me just how paradoxical the times that we're living in are. So many wonderful things are happening. People are waking up all over the world. We're breaking free of old paradigms. We're reaching out to each other with enormous amounts of compassion, truth-telling courage, and collaborative synergy. At times it can feel like there's so much to hope for and to work towards. And then there are other times when we look around and it seems that all we see is suffering, oppression, and corruption. We're experiencing unprecedented levels of divisiveness, injustice, and sensory overload. And our capacity to open our hearts and cut through the noise has never been more tested. So if we're not only going to survive but thrive as a species, we're going to need to learn how to honor and respect our differences while acknowledging and embracing our interconnectedness. And we're also going to have to learn how to stay grounded, present, caring, even when we're in the middle of an overstimulating, anxiety-provoking, and mind and heart numbing storm. In 2015, when I brought forth the 64 Faces of Awakening, and then the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck that came after that, my deepest intention was to reclaim, reflect, and celebrate the soul of the world. I wanted to illuminate the incredible uniqueness of each person, while also inviting all of us into a deep, intimate experience that could transcend self and other. So the faces, or wisdom keepers, that I'll be sharing with you today embody the kind of peace, love, and understanding that I really long to see in the world, and imagine you do too, and to experience in myself. So in honor of this gathering, and in response to what I could easily call a collective crisis with its inherent danger and opportunity, I've prepared a collective transformation spread that I'd like to share with you. So holding you all in my heart, I called in 4 wisdom keepers. The first to represent the challenge that we're all facing together as a human family. The second to reflect the desired outcome and blessing that can grow out of this shared crisis. The third to reflect the shadow theme that's in most need of our attention and embrace if we're going to meet this crisis with grace. And finally, the fourth to show us the ultimate gift we have the potential to give birth to in ourselves and in the world around us. For each card, I've prepared some supportive and relevant questions for you to take with you into your private contemplations. I'll make sure you receive access to a PDF file with these exploratory questions. So please feel free to use them as journal prompts or as contemplations you bring into conversations with the people in your life. I encourage you to invite your friends, families, fellow activists, wisdom seekers, creative collaborators into your inquiry. If you're a professional wisdom keeper, I encourage you to find creative ways to bring these themes into your service. Share your evolving insights with your clients, students, followers, and encourage their contribution to the dialogue. My genuine hope is that these 4 wisdom keepers can inspire all of us into some kind of action so that we can engage with the world more deeply and from a place of empowerment and love. If you already have a Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, you may notice that the questions that I'll be sharing in the PDF file are different than those that are provided in the inner guidebook. And this is because what we're doing here today is a collective reading. So I've made changes to the questions in order to address the larger collective transformation that we're working with together. Towards the end of our time, for those of you who feel drawn to continue working with the Wisdom Keepers, I'll be sharing some ways that you can learn more about the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. If you're not familiar with the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, let me just quickly share a few of the essential elements included in each of the 4 Wisdom Keeper cards that I'll be pulling during our time together. Each card, among other things, has a number. So each wisdom keeper is associated with one of the 64 archetypes, which can be related to the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching and some of its descendants, including the 64 gene keys. Each wisdom keeper is connected to 3 essential concepts: the shadow, gift, and city, as used by Richard Rudd in the Gene Keys. For Richard Rudd, these define a spectrum of consciousness and refer to archetypal states that he correlates with the human experiential stages of survival, service, and surrender. The shadow has its roots in Jungian psychology, while siddhi is a Sanskrit term used in both Buddhist and Hindu mystical traditions. When we're worried about our survival and fear is in the driver's seat, we find ourselves in shadow territory. Our shadows can be expressed in repressive or reactive ways. When we're more oriented towards serving others and honoring ourselves than protecting and defending ourselves, we more naturally share our gifts with others and feel a sense of belonging in the world. When we have entered into a pure state of expansion and have completely surrendered our sense of separateness into the whole, we have entered the realm of the siddhi. Understanding how the gift, shadow, and siddhi are constantly interacting with each other throughout our lives can help us engage with the wisdom keepers and ourselves with greater compassion and patience. So this is all about awakening to the full spectrum of our human consciousness and potential so that we can become more gentle with ourselves, with other people, and begin to engage in our lives and the world around us with greater compassion and the capacity to see the bigger, deeper picture. You'll also notice that each face has been intentionally infused with universal yet specific symbols, reflecting the unique gifts embodied by the particular wisdom keeper. Each wisdom keeper that I'll share with you today has an archetypal yet deeply personal story. They also have a gift for you. They'll be bringing you a gift of wisdom and guidance. So even though the story is very specific to the wisdom keeper, the gift of wisdom has universal relevance. So let's just take a deep breath and start with a poem that was written by Prem Tanmayo, a dear friend and profound wisdom keeper in her own right. If you have your own deck, or if you choose to get one in the future, you'll find this poem in the Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, and it's called The Human Face. The Human Face. The infinite writes her stories on the contours of the face, the ultimate reality shining forth from living mirrors. The seeker need only cast their gaze upon this holy countenance. Lost in open receptivity, absorbed in living light, all other disappears as we breathe alone, together, face to face with the mystery. Okay, so now let's begin our collective transformation spread. I shall pull the first card. The first wisdom keeper has come to us in order to represent the challenge that we're all facing together as a human family. This is the wisdom keeper of guidance. The real leader is the ultimate listener. The gift of guidance, the shadow of division, the city of virtue. My wisdom story for you. When I was little, I trusted and admired the peace-loving elders in my community. As I grew, my people experienced more oppression from the outside world, and new leaders appeared who believed that it was time to fight fire with fire. At first I hid. I handed my authority over to the elders who maintained the peaceful ways of our ancestors. But when our community was attacked again and again, I handed my authority over to the leaders who fought back. I watched them become more and more like our enemies as divisiveness grew in our village. I was tired of giving my power away to dictator types who never bothered to ask what I thought or how I felt. I was tired of waiting for others to get it right. So I stepped forward as a leader and fought for my people and for justice everywhere. Over the years, I attracted many followers. Always certain I was on the right side of justice, a deep ambition grew in me that was fueled by an anger I hadn't yet owned. One day I scolded a young woman for not listening to me or following my advice. Her tears showed me I had lost my way. From that day on, I stopped leading and started listening. I discovered that every community member was wise and capable of making an important contribution to our people's path. Today, I am no longer fueled by a fear of oppression or the desire for external recognition. I don't need everyone to understand the way I lead or why I do what I do. What drives me now is a deep love of service and the belief that there is no such thing as a healthy community without healthy, free, and autonomous individuals. When I guide groups, I interfere as little as possible and always find that each person's wisdom and gifts just naturally rise to the surface. The less I push my agenda for the group, the deeper the communication, the more transformative the action, and the smoother the implementation of the vision becomes. There will be more and more leaders like me as we move into the future. I know this to be true. Thus, I am able to trust in humanity even during these turbulent times. My gift to you. I am here to share that true leadership is not about forcefully imposing an agenda or interfering in other people's lives. It's about lovingly empowering from behind the scenes. Be not driven by the fear of oppression or the love of power, but by a profound love of service. I am here to provide you with true guidance. I come to recognize the wise, free leader in you and to help you trust in your own direction. I am listening.
So when we're looking at this card, let's remember that we're looking at the essence of the challenge that we're facing as a collective. And it's all about power. It's about the way we're using power or not using power, or allowing others to have power over us, or benefiting from the powers and privileges that we have that we may not even know we have. It's also about the ways that we aren't listening, not listening to each other, not listening to ourselves, and how this inability or unwillingness to listen is feeding the divisions in our world. If we're going to face this challenge as a collective, we need to find more balanced ways of working with and distributing power, of practicing power with as opposed to power over. And this requires self-empowerment as well as deep listening. It requires that we honor and celebrate the sovereignty of all beings, even those who are different from us. In the PDF file that I'll be providing you, you'll find questions about your relationship to power, where you give it away, and where you may be allowing others to give their power to you. About your relationship to listening, where you could be listening more to yourself and to others. What conditions make it difficult or easy to truly listen. You'll receive encouragement to move towards your own growth and service edge in relation to all that's happening in the world, and to explore areas where you could benefit from more guidance, as well as areas where your own guidance is needed, if you dare show up. So I really hope that you receive inspiration from these questions. Okay, so now it's time to pull card number 2 in honor of our collective transformation. Let's remember that this particular wisdom keeper that we'll be pulling is coming to us in order to reflect the desired outcome, the blessing and opportunity that can grow out of our shared collective crisis. What is the vision that we need to be holding together? What is it that we're working towards? Okay, so the second wisdom keeper that's come to us is the wisdom keeper of diplomacy. The gift of diplomacy, the shadow of conflict, the city of peace. My wisdom story. Where I grew up, tragedy and violence were all that we knew. Generations of my people had been traumatized and scarred, and conflict was everywhere, between West and East, modern and ancient, wealthy and poor, men and women. As a young girl, I had little power. I could neither speak out against the injustices I witnessed in the world, nor the abuses that happened at home. Always afraid of attack, my body was on constant state of alert. On the outside, I was over-attentive, the peacemaker. At any sign of conflict, I'd smooth out the waters. But on the inside, I was nervous and insecure. I feared all men and people that were different from my own. I put up walls around my heart. Once I lost control and lashed out, blaming my father for being a bully and my mother for being a victim, blaming entire nations for harming my people and my people for letting them. My tactless words cut like knives. Overcome with guilt and fear, I begged for forgiveness, spending the next weeks punishing myself and pleasing everyone around me. But the incessant pleasing, like the ruthless blaming, only made things worse. It wasn't until I was invited to visit a local peace group by my great aunt that everything changed. I'd never seen men and women sitting together, listening, supporting, and inspiring each other with such open hearts, honesty, and respect. They were neither guarded nor reactive, and for the first time I experienced the kind of peace and love I'd been longing for my whole life. In the safety of my great aunt's embrace, my defenses dropped. I finally faced the pain, powerlessness, and loneliness I'd been hiding from myself and everyone else. I became the leader of this organization for many years, but now I find that peace simply happens wherever I go. My gift to you. I am here to invite you to drop your defenses. Let down your guard. Stop fighting against your own humanity by refusing to see, feel, and accept your inner demons. There is a way to calm emotional waters in your intimate relationships and in the world without repressing or avoiding the truth. There is a way to dissolve seemingly insurmountable barriers to peace. To know precisely when it's time to act, when it's time to speak, and how to speak powerfully, yet from the heart. The true path of peace and diplomacy requires that you fearlessly look at and embrace your own weaknesses. Don't protect yourself from your deepest emotions, and you will find that your timing, communication, and relationships will improve. Naturally, others will want to confide in you, and you will sense just what is needed. Even in the most emotionally volatile situations, your very presence can have the power to shift the energy of a room or a relationship from one of conflict to peace. Wow, so what a beautiful outcome. Can you imagine a world where everyone is willing and able to drop our defenses and just stop the fighting and give up on having to be right, on having to have our own perspectives continually validated and understood? Let's just for a moment envision a world where everyone, no matter our political, religious, cultural, sexual orientation, just let down our protections, just took some time to explore and own the shadows within us and felt our feelings fully and with compassion and patience. Imagine that we all, world leaders included, took a breath before giving into the temptation to speak our truth with a kind of charge or defensiveness and reactivity that cements division in the world. And instead we found ways to stay present, relaxed in our bodies, despite the emotional turbulence we also feel and the turbulence all around us. Imagine that instead of focusing our minds on what everyone else is doing right or not doing right or on everything we ourselves are doing wrong or could be doing better, we could just show up as human beings who embrace our humanness as well as the humanity of others. We could find ways to respond to what's happening in the world, to speak our truth, but with sensitivity, strength, and impeccable timing. Imagine a world where true diplomacy, downing walls, not erecting them, and finding common ground is much more important to all of us than being right or righteous. Let's just take a moment to imagine this world together. In the Questions for Contemplation PDF file that I'll be sharing with you, you'll find invitations to deepen your exploration of the themes of peacemaking and conflict. And you'll be asked to look compassionately at areas in your life where it's particularly hard for you to avoid feeling defensive or guarded, times when you find yourself getting easily caught in people-pleasing patterns, places where there's room for you to be more honest, more transparent, more generous with your truth, as well as your vulnerability. And you'll be asked to explore what it really means to take responsibility for your feelings and core values, and how you can speak about them in ways that dissolve conflict as opposed to amplify it. I really hope that you find these questions helpful, whether you use them only for yourself or whether you choose to bring them into your relationships or service in the world. So remember that this wisdom keeper has come to us in order to reflect the shadow theme that's most in need of our attention right now. If we're to meet our current collective crisis with grace, to turn it into an opportunity for transformation, then this is the shadow we're going to need to face more than any other, and we're going to need to embrace it and transform it. Gift, revolution, shadow of reaction, city of rebirth. My wisdom story. I was born a passionate, sensitive idealist. Though my family was relatively liberal, my parents were not passionate people. They'd ignore anything for the sake of harmony, which brought out the hypocrisy detector in me. My mother identified as a feminist, but she still made herself small, and my father let her. My parents considered themselves open-minded, but I saw the look on their faces when I brought home romantic partners of a different race, ethnicity, or gender than expected. Our neighborhood prided itself on its progressive politics, but it also subtly discouraged certain people from moving in, rationalized wars, and dehumanized others. It was the inertness and denial that angered me the most. Beneath the anger was hurt. How could they not see what I saw or feel what I felt? When I confronted my parents and they refused to own their biases, we'd have huge fights. I went off to college. My mind spun and my heart broke as I learned about the plight of so many oppressed peoples. I seethed when I witnessed any kind of systemic marginalization or institutional oppression. For years I hung out with like-minded activists and judged my parents and most people for not getting it. The more staunchly I fought for peace, the more my personal life was rife with conflict. If I detected a drop of racist blood in my romantic partners, I dropped them. It wasn't until my best friend divorced me, calling me the most reactionary person she'd ever met, that I woke up. Losing her was devastating, but also a gift. All this time, as I divided up the world into good and ignorant and rejected people left and right, I was desperately trying to avoid being rejected. My fear of rejection had caused me to shut out so many people just because their worldview was different than mine. It took time to move through the layers of humiliation, guilt, and regret. Only when I was able to forgive myself could I begin to repair my personal relationships. Finally, I understood in my heart just how deep our human tendency is to split the world into black and white, us and them. This realization released a creativity in me I never knew was there. Now, instead of rejecting the old world, I channel all my love and energy into envisioning and co-creating a new one. My approach to the peace movement has become delightfully peaceful. My gift to you. Welcome to the peaceful revolution. If you long to bring harmony to your community, begin by being patient, gentle, and compassionate with yourself. Give your feelings time, space, and plenty of creative outlets, but do not judge them, for when you do, you create an internal pressure that intensifies the feelings and the impulse to act them out. Rejecting yourself only makes it more difficult to see objectively, soften the heart, understand the other, and see possibilities for resolution. If you must rebel, then rebel against your inner impulse to attack anyone. When you resist the urge to react based on emotions or to be violent towards yourself, you're doing your part to end violence in the world. Be revolutionary, not reactionary. Interesting. So again, we're being invited to be gentle with ourselves and to understand at a very deep level that if we want to make this world a more peaceful place, we have to embody peace from the inside out. One of the things I love most about this wisdom keeper is the way she helps us understand the dangers of self-judgment. How when we don't allow ourselves to feel what we feel, if we push away any aspect of our genuine internal experience, if we cultivate an unfriendly environment inside of ourselves, then this actually builds up pressure inside that makes it really hard not to be reactive. And she's telling us that if we can't practice self-compassion, it's not possible to be truly compassionate to anyone else, especially those who are different from us. And especially when we ourselves are feeling judged or attacked by their worldviews. We can't even see them clearly anymore. The other thing I love about her is her invitation to give our internal experiences space by engaging in creativity. And while it may not be for the benefit of humanity in our world if we rage at our neighbor who has different political views than we do, it may be beneficial if we pour that emotional intensity into a poem, dance, painting, or piece of creative writing. There are so many ways to embrace the charge that we feel without doing harm. And when we let ourselves truly release and see and feel what's happening inside of us, energy is freed to deal more directly and constructively with other people. So this isn't about sublimating all of our ideals away into some private art form. It's about owning, moving, transforming the energy. So when it's time to go out into the world and make a contribution or speak our truth, we bring a friendly or at least much less charged inner environment into any environment we enter. And this allows our sight, our insight, our contribution to be more constructive and caring. And that's what it's all about. As with the other cards, the PDF provided is going to offer you questions to contemplate and bring into your everyday life and relationships. So you're going to have the chance to explore your relationship to harmony as well as honesty. You'll get to look at the ways you might be rejecting others before they have a chance to reject you, and how that tendency might be impacting your life and your ability to impact the world around you effectively. You'll also receive encouragement to embrace your feelings, as well as to find creative ways to give them expression. So this is our final wisdom keeper for our collective transformation spread. This wisdom keeper comes to us with the intention of showing us the ultimate gift that we as a collective have the potential to cultivate and bring into the world around us. The gift of humanity, the shadow of turbulence, the city of compassion. My wisdom story. The world expected my father to be a bad seed, so he became one. He cheated on my mother, had a bad temper, and created chaos wherever he went. Like many of the men in our neighborhood, he was reckless, always pushing the limit, getting into trouble, and attracting crisis after crisis. He didn't mean to hurt us, which is probably why he hid so much from us and why he begged for forgiveness when my mother and grandmother finally kicked him out. My mother and grandmother were strong women who did their best to raise and protect me. Their task wasn't easy, given our turbulent neighborhood, where the police frightened us as much as the gangs. I witnessed more tragedies than a young boy ever should. I also watched the news and saw how men like my father were perceived and treated. I promised myself I'd never be like him or cause the pain he caused. As a teen, if I felt anger or lust, I'd go with my grandmother to church and pray for my sins to be taken away. But over time, the stress got to me, and my nervousness gave me tics. Though inside I was sensitive and caring, I avoided eye contact with people and appeared shifty. I was hard to reach and had few friends, although there was one girl in my church who I secretly fancied. Too shy to approach her, I followed her home one day, hid in the bushes and peeked in her window. She saw someone in the bushes and called the police. Imagine the shame I felt when my poor mother and grandmother had to come to the jail and bail me out. The charges were dropped as soon as the girl discovered who it was, but I was still required to meet with a social worker. Something in his eyes reassured me he'd been there. He knew suffering deep in his bones. He didn't just see the terror, shame, or nervousness in me. He saw the good seed. It was a strange and amazing experience to have a man encourage me to talk about my feelings. I knew instantly that I'd one day come to do exactly what he did. I'd see the good seed in everyone I met. I'd look straight into their eyes and let them know with my whole heart that they were okay exactly how they were, no matter how they felt, what they looked like, or where they came from. My gift to you. I come to celebrate your humanity, to remind you of your innate goodness, and to reassure you that there is no feeling in you that is inherently wrong or bad. No matter what you've done or experienced in life, you are innocent at your core. What matters now is not what you feel, but what you do with your feelings. I ask you, please don't reject your feelings or react to them. Simply acknowledge and embrace any emotional turbulence within you with compassion. Nervousness is only a sign that you have some feelings that need to be seen and embraced. Don't run from your pain, for along with your pain comes a great deal of pleasure. Oh, wow. Each of these wisdom keepers and their inherent messages feel so connected to me. Again, we're hearing, don't reject yourself. Don't deny or make wrong your feelings. It's okay that we're feeling emotionally upset or nervous or anxious. How could we possibly be living in our world today without feeling some kind of emotional turbulence? This wisdom keeper is saying that this is actually to be expected. It's okay. Emotional turbulence can even be healthy if we don't run away from it. It can be productive, even pleasurable, as counterintuitive as that may seem. What matters most here is that we remember our own innate goodness, because when we do this deep down, we're so much more able to see the innate goodness in others, even those who've forgotten their own goodness because of the conditioning that they've received, or the injustices and oppression that they've experienced, or the ignorance that they've inherited. Our gift to the world is our ultimate ability to see humanity in everyone we meet, even when it's hard, especially when we feel emotionally uncomfortable. Our gift to the world is our willingness not to run away from our own pain, and our willingness to entertain the possibility that when we stop doing that, whether we do it through projecting negativity onto others or distracting ourselves with TV, Facebook, work, alcohol, sex, whatever addictive tendencies we have, we can actually increase humanity's capacity to bring compassion and pleasure to the world. And boy, does our world need that. As with the other cards, you're going to find questions for explorations in the PDF file provided. You'll be invited to explore the places in your own life where you're feeling and perhaps avoiding emotional turbulence, and how that might be impacting your ability to show up with acceptance, compassion, and a willingness to see the goodness of others. You'll be invited to think of the people in your life who've been able to see your goodness even when you couldn't see it yourself, and to find ways to become someone who can do this for even more others, even when it's hard. Okay, so that was our collective transformation spread. A deep thank you to the wisdom keeper of guidance and virtue, and of peace and diplomacy, and of peaceful revolution and rebirth, and of humanity and compassion. I truly hope that these 4 wisdom keepers who've come to us today have spoken to you personally and provided you with love and insight and the encouragement you need to meet our shared challenges with authenticity, passion, and grace. Remember to check out the questions for contemplation that I've mentioned throughout this webinar. I put together for you in the PDF file. Bring them with you into your contemplations, your relationships, your conversations, into your actions. For any of you who may feel drawn to going a bit deeper, I'd like to share with you about an upcoming online course that I'm creating called the Wisdom Keeper's Wheel of Integrity. This is going to be a 4-part course. Everyone who participates in this one is going to be working with their own Wisdom Keeper's Oracle deck throughout the whole class. So we'll begin by making sure that everyone has one, and also that they receive a good introduction to their deck. I really love helping people develop a personal relationship with the Wisdom Keepers. And then we're going to go on a journey together using our own decks. Here, each of us are going to be creating our own wisdom wheel of integrity. In other words, we'll be calling in a unique council of 4 wisdom keepers who will be there to guide us in finding our own unique way of understanding and expressing integrity in our own lives. Because what integrity looks and feels like to me isn't necessarily what it's going to look and feel like to you. Each wisdom keeper is going to stand for an essential aspect of integrity, such as courage, kindness, healthy boundaries, and wisdom. I've chosen to focus on the theme of integrity because I can think a few things we need to cultivate more than that. During these super intense and in many ways frightening times, it can be so easy to lose our center, right? And whether we're getting lost in a battle for survival, or checking out in the guise of spirituality, or going to sleep as global citizens out of sheer overwhelm, or feeling pressured by others to respond in ways that don't really feel authentic to us, we can come out of alignment with our integrity. I found 2 definitions of integrity in the dictionary. One is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. And the other is the state of being whole and undivided. What a beautiful paradox, right? One that the wisdom keepers, I think, are especially qualified to teach us how to hold and walk together. When we're living in integrity, we're able to take a stand for what and who we care about, without closing our hearts down to those who think or feel differently from us. When we're living in integrity, we're able to see clearly the unfortunate consequences of us versus them thinking and survival-based reactivity without getting swept up by the strong currents of our own judging minds. When we're living in integrity, we're able to discern between a grounded embodiment of our deepest spiritual values and a feel-good spiritual bypass. When we're living in integrity, we're much better able to help others live in their integrity because we're not imposing our way on them. As wisdom keepers in training, we all get to learn from each other because in the end, the only way our planet can achieve balance and wholeness is if each of us come authentically into our own personal integrity. This is what these 4 wisdom keepers in our collective transformation spread have been telling us in each their own way. So I'm looking so much forward to offering this class and to making it possible for the wisdom keepers to support participants as they uncover the alchemy and wisdom of their own integrity dance and share what they learn with the people in their life and the world. And finally, I'd like to close with a video I thought you might enjoy, given the themes that we've been exploring here together. In 2017, I had the great honor of bringing the 64 Faces of Awakening, or Wisdom Keepers, to the Living Arts Playback Theater ensemble's rehearsal in Oakland, California. And I had no idea what to expect when I came to the rehearsal. I just brought some printed out images of the Wisdom Keepers and a willingness to share my story. And I was so profoundly moved by the improvised reflections that emerged during our time together that I felt compelled to share some of them with you today and here. And honestly, I didn't expect that they would give me and the Wisdom Keepers so much of their precious time. So if I seem a little shy or awkward, that's because I actually was. So I'll just embrace that. Okay. The Living Arts Playback Theater Ensemble is a troupe of improvisational actors and musicians who play back personal stories shared by audience members in ways that both honor and illuminate the original experience. This was created by Armand Volkas, a psychotherapist, drama therapist, and beloved mentor friend of mine. This wonderful theater ensemble, in collaboration with Healing the Wounds of History Project, has received international acclaim for its work in bringing groups in conflict together, such as Germans and Jews, Palestinians and Israelis, Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, on their own legacy of World War II, and Armenians and Turks. It goes on and on. So what I'll be sharing you here is the second performance of the Living Arts Playback Theater Ensemble in response to the story of the Wisdom Keeper of humanity and compassion.
These beings put us into such a transpersonal place. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to share and for us to witness, and I guess for the world to witness? So was there one, was it a rainy day? Was it you were sitting in your parlor and there were lightning outside, and somebody knocked at the door? Is there?
I don't know if I could tell a story in that way. I mean, I can say that one at the end came during the time when the Black Lives Matters movement was really taking shape, and I was feeling very sad about some of the things that were happening, and also some hope around some of the movement that was gathering steam and momentum. And now, today, I can see how far we have yet to go. So there's there's a part of me that, and this man, can I tell his story?
Yeah, okay, sure. Do you want to?
Yeah, he's that one over there.
Do you want to? Okay.
So he was a young black man who grew up in an urban setting without very much hope. And he was as afraid of the police as he was of the violence in his neighborhood. He was being raised by his mother and his grandmother, and his father had really struggled because his father was being perceived as a bad seed. And this young man was actually a very, very sweet boy, very innocent, but very shy. And I don't have to get into all the details here, but he got into a situation where a young girl thought that he was dangerous and looking at her and called the police on him. And he ended up connecting with a social worker who got a sense of his story. And that social worker was a black man who had been through it and had a great deal of compassion in his heart. And he saw the good seed in him. And because of that, his whole life kind of evolved from there, and he became someone who was determined to see the good seed in everyone, to see that we all have innate goodness inside of us, no matter what color of our skin, no matter how the society perceives us, no matter how we're presented, no matter how much ism there is in the world.
Okay. Let's watch.
it's a barren landscape. It's bleak, but it only takes one seed, one tiny seed to grow a plant, to grow a movement, to spread an idea. And then from one seed you have a forest.
I want to be a father. I want to show my boy what it's like, how it feels to be a black man in America. But they look at me and they call me a bad seed. They look at me as a black man in this country, someone to be afraid of, someone to be hunted, someone who's not worthy to be a father, to be a citizen. They say I'm just a bad seed.
No, I need you on the other side, sir. I can't look at you. I can't look at you in the eye because I can't realize what I don't want to see in myself. I need you to go on the other side, sir. No. See, this is where we end. This is where we end. I can't have you crossing over into my space and my land and my feelings and my privilege and my understanding of what it means to be me. I need you over there, sir. And if you won't stay over there, I'm gonna get all of the powers I can possibly find to keep me from feeling uncomfortable, sir. Stop. Stay on your side. Stay away from my feeling.
I want to come out, but it's not safe. I want to bring out my love. But I've been taught that it's not good enough. That I'm not good enough. And it's the freedom. I need somebody to tell me, to show me that my love is good enough.
I just want to care for my son.
No, sir. I need you to stay on your side.
I want to show him what it's like to be a black man in America.
One seed to let you close to mine.
A single
That I'm not a bad seed.
A seed
He's not
grow into an entire forest.
a bad seed.
No.
He's my son.
A single seed.
Such a deep story. Thank you.
You did more justice to it than I did. Yes, thank you very much.
Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for hanging in there through that little Gene Keys 51 glitch. Thank you for just being here for this entire time. And I would just love to ask all of us to take a moment to just touch base inside and feel into our own hearts and the experience that we just had. And I just want to thank you all for just opening up to receive the messages from the Wisdom Keepers and this incredible performance of the Living Arts Playback Theater. And just for one moment, the three of us thought it would be really nice if each of you could just share a word or two that captures the feeling that you have right now, no matter what it is. So if you're on the webinar, you can just share a couple of words in the chat box. If you're live on Facebook, you can share in the comments section. If you don't feel like writing anything down, that's totally fine. Just share it with yourself, you know, in your heart or with words out loud. And let's just take a moment to just hear each other and take in the collective response.
It's beautiful as all those words are pouring into that chat box. Thank you for that invitation, Rosie. And to anyone that's watching live on Facebook, then there's in the webinar right now, people are just sharing, you know, soul touching, truthfully seeing myself, time to act on inspiration. You know, they're sharing these little feelings and things that are coming up, and it's so sweet to see that connection that it brings. Let solace abound in the world. So beautiful. So as they come in, just being conscious as well of our space and time, how do you think we let that continue to flow? And maybe Pam, would you like to speak into?
Yeah, it's such a, feels like there's a real field that's been drawn and nourished and is being cultivated. And when we were preparing for this, we realized that we really wanted to be able to have some kind of an opportunity for more interaction. So we're going to have a gathering of wisdom keepers, and that's all of us. Next Monday, April 13th at 1 o'clock, we're going to do a Zoom gathering so that we can come back together. And there was one little piece that I left out in the beginning, and it feels just to note this, and as we go into our weeks. And it was that I was speaking to all of us. So many of us in the world have been committed to our inner work. And as we continue on those paths, part of it is to heal enough so that we can really create the safety and integration in our own hearts, and so that we can share our gifts and work cooperatively out with others and all stand up as wisdom keepers. So everything today has been saying that. And as we go into our week, Rosie's going to have an ending question for contemplation for us at the end. And we also want to just invite you to take what's touched your heart today and spirit and bring it into your contemplations. And then we'll gather next Monday. You'll get information about that on the email that'll come with the replay and a bunch of other goodies. And we'll share our hearts with each other. So we hope you can join us, as many of you as can. We've got plenty of room. So thanks. And I think, Mark, you're going to share about a bunch of wonderful offerings that Rosie has coming.
Yes, thank you, Pam. So just a few of the logistical things, and before we close off with some sweet words from Rosie, and because I believe we can never have enough of those. And so a few technical things. As you've seen during this webinar, there's been mention of a PDF that you will be sent that has these questions in to continue this contemplation. Because what we've just experienced is a very powerful connection to something that's deeper lying within all of us waking up. And so Rosie has created a magnificent PDF that gives you these questions and helps into how we can bring them into integrating them into our everyday life, and that we can each work with. And so that PDF is going to be sent to you in an email that will come, let's say, within the next 48 hours, allowing some space and grace for the process to happen. And it will be sent to the email that you registered with to this webinar. And we will also post the link in the Facebook Live chat as well, where you'll be able to access this. Now, there will be 2 free PDF files that are coming with it. One will be around the questions, and there's another that maybe Rosie, I'll get you to speak to afterwards in regards to that little bonus. Maybe we can close with that and the question. But they will help with the actual integration process. Now, the other part that Rosie wanted to make sure was acknowledged here was that the Bulgarian team is actually translating that PDF file from this webinar out of the kindness of their hearts, and that they'll be also translating the collective reading. So as soon as that's received and done, Rosie's and Kim are going to make sure that's posted up on this website. So the email that you get will show you the link exactly where you can get access to all of this in one spot to make it nice and simple for everyone. So a big shout out to the Bulgarian team. And Rosie's also said that she's happy to send the transcript to any other translators who might want to do it for their language. Because as anyone knows that's part of this Gene Keys world and the Wisdom Keepers, is really important, you know, that we're honoring the fact that we are multilingual, that we are many colors and languages and sounds and frequencies. And so that's strongly encouraged. So if you feel to do a translation for your language, then please get in touch with Rosie through her website, which again, will all be linked. Now, many of you are probably super inspired by the Wisdom Keeper cards. I know that personally, I have this with me everywhere I go in the world. It is the most incredible deck that you have created, Rosie. I am forever grateful in the way that it has brought the wisdom of the ages to a way that people can access. So if you are, many of you are probably going to jump on and try and get hold of a copy. Rosie does encourage looking for a local reseller in your area, which are linked in the website and will also be mentioned in that email. If you can't find a local reseller, then what you can do is pop on Amazon, who at the moment, there's a lot of turbulence around the logistics in the world and different things. But currently they do have decks in stock, or they are getting fairly low. So it's also just being a little bit patient with logistics and delivery, transport, etc., due to the global situation we're in at the moment. But of course, always you can reach out and contact Rosie and Kim at thewisdomkeepers.net, where that will be there. The most important part I really want to bring in here is that we've just been given a beautiful gift in being able to have this connection into the vulnerability of what it is to be truly human and what it means to walk in integrity. And Rosie Aronson has written a book called Walking a Fine Line. It's how to be a professional wisdom keeper in the healing arts. Now, what I love about Rosie is what she brings is not just theoretical. This is a leader who walks her talk and stands in it every day. And so I really want to take the opportunity to, with all of my heart, recommend that if this has touched you, then to consider engaging in work with Rosie to have a look at what her offerings are that you'll get in this follow-up email. And she's offering the course that was mentioned at the end of the video, and the Wheel of Integrity, which is going to be an incredible opportunity to take all of what we've just talked about, to get your own deck of cards and really build a relationship so that you can become your own greatest guide and no longer need to externalize that authority outwardly, but really embody your own power in being your own wisdom keeper and then contributing that to the world. So it's an online self-guided course. You can do it at your own pace as you're ready. And Rosie has been very generous, and there's going to be a little bonus in there in that email. So if you've been touched by this work, then make sure that you're keeping an eye out for that email. Maybe check your spam junk box if it doesn't turn up in the next 48 hours. And if you still don't get it, then reach out to one of us and we'll make sure that you do. There'll be a nice little bonus to make it a lot more accessible to everybody. And I cannot recommend enough taking part in any offering that Rosie offers, because I know for me personally, it has been absolutely game-changing to have you in my life, Rosie. And Pam, the same to you. You have been a pillar of loving, compassionate support that both of you have been such beautiful roles of integrity for me. And so I would love nothing more than to encourage everyone else to bathe in the same gifts. So I hope I've covered all the technical aspects there. As we say, the email will have all the follow-up details. And don't forget to join us on that live Wisdom Keeper call that Pam mentioned. Again, the link will be there. And I hand it to you, Rosie, for the finishing words.
Okay. Okay, it's a lot to receive right now, but I'm just going to focus because we need to bring this to a close together. I just would like to ask all of you one question, and this question is very connected to the second PDF file that I just kind of woke up in the middle of the night and was inspired to create and give to you and just share it with anybody you want. And this is the question: how are you uniquely prepared for the times that we are living in? You know, what qualities have you cultivated? What passions do you have? What life experience or ability, skills, interests, capacity do you have that can really come in handy right about now in our world? Whether it's on the small scale, internally, in your family relations, your personal relationships, professionally, activist-wise, whatever. I really want you to start thinking about that, bringing that into your contemplations. And you know what? If you can just listen to somebody with an open heart when they're having a hard time, or you can just feel a certain amount of comfort with discomfort, or you're pretty resilient when you fall down, then you're actually in pretty good shape right now. So just contemplate that, talk about it. The PDF file was my attempt to just getting this brainstorming started, and I would love it to be co-created by humanity so that we can all start to realize, wow, we're ready for this time. We've been working on this for a really, really long time. This is our time to shine with big open hearts. So I think I'll just end it there. And then I'll just say, if there's some questions, we'll go over the questions afterwards. If there's some practical things, we'll make sure that you get answers to them at some point.
Beautiful. Then I'm just, Rosie, is it okay to share the link to the website now in the chat? Yeah?
Absolutely. I was thinking that.
I'm just popping it in the chat here. So the link, wisdomkeepers.net/transformation. That's going to be your one-stop shop for all the information around this collective evolutionary spread. In that space, the actual recording may take up to 48 hours to edit and upload, as we have some piecing together to be done. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rosie, so much for your gift, your presence in this world. Thank you, Pam, for everything you bring. And to everyone that's tuned in and watched, thank you. This has been the most heart-touching, warming 4 a.m. wake-up I've ever done. So much love. Sending it all out to you.